Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Daily Debrief. My name is Coach Micah, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing some of the things that I realized as we get through this tournament, and today especially, with a special emphasis on educating those who are still in the tournament. Now listen, if you're watching this video, then that means one of two things. First, it means that you broke and you want to know a little bit about the competition, some of the arguments that I, as a judge, have seen at this tournament. And I would totally implore you to go back and watch the 2 daily debriefs that I've already put out, because those include a majority of the arguments, since today I only judged 1 LD round. But 2, you're watching this video because you want to become a better debater and you want to understand why the people that broke. So I'm gonna have a lot of helpful information regarding that. But I do wanna do a very, very special shout out. So my 13-year-old kid brother, he shares my last name, broke in LD here at NITOC. This is his first ever national tournament, and this is his first year doing LD, and he beat out the majority of y'all, which is absolutely amazing, and the majority of his club. So we are all rallying behind him, and I am super proud of you, Mr. Milo, and I hope you make it far. In fact, the reason that this video came out so late was because I spent at least an hour and a half prepping him and getting him ready for tomorrow. With that being said, it is now my job and my goal to prep you guys as much as possible. So let's get straight into it. Like I said, a lot of the argumentation that I have seen in this tournament still stays true, even into this 3rd video. So if you want to know more about that, go ahead and watch the first 2. I don't want to rehash too much. Make sure that your framework is consistent, that you don't drop it, don't get rid of your framework, don't let your opponent redefine the round right in front of you. Make sure you address the framework. Make sure that you understand how to ask good cross-examination questions. Don't just say, you believe that your position is wrong, correct? I've seen questions structured exactly like that, and they're not helpful, and they don't actually prove your point. It's best to ask unassuming questions, unassuming yes or no questions, because they will allow your opponent to give an answer that actually could potentially be an admission that helps you. You don't have to go full force into proving your opponent wrong in cross-examination. Get their thoughts, get their words, ask them why, ask them to clarify. And once you have that information, you can craft a speech. I feel a lot of people try to craft their speech in their cross-examination question, basically saying, wait a minute, so you think that the resolution is true, question mark? Or you think that, but we can agree that action doesn't equal inaction, right? Or we can agree that theoretical knowledge doesn't actually equal opportunities, right? That's an argument in the form of a question. Don't do that. You're making a statement and then you're ending with right, correct? That's not a good way to ask a cross-examination question. So framework is key, cross-examination is key, etc. Okay, great. You have made it to outrounds. You want to know how to separate yourself from your opponents because they're all really good. They all qualified basically to be at this next level of the competition. One of the best ways to do this is through your personality. Because when it comes down to 2 debaters, and this is unfortunately the world we live in and how psychology and science works, if you have 2 equally good debaters who are going toe-to-toe and they're doing great, a key variable that is important to not miss is your personality. How you carry yourself in the round, and how respectful you are. What do I mean by this? A person who smiles, a person who doesn't react poorly to things that they hear, even if what they hear is weird, and the person who is polite and polished and confident is the person the judge is gonna like more. And the judge is gonna subliminally try to find reasons to vote for that person, even if it means justifying, let's say you lost on paper. I'm a coach, I don't really pay much attention to delivery, since delivery is not the end-all be-all of argumentation. You absolutely can make good arguments, but deliver them kind of poorly, right? So on paper, you could just bomb. You could forget a framework point. You could just drop half an entire case. But if you're likable and you're personable and you're confident in the few arguments that you do bring to the table, there is a likelihood that you could still win, because it's really important to debate for the judge, not necessarily debate for your opponent. You're not going to be able to get everything perfectly. You're going to waste time here and there. But if you're clear, you're concise, you're confident, and you're smiling, you're going to have a much easier time separating yourself from your competition. So that is the first thing I would recommend. Be the person the judge wants to vote for. What do I mean by no reacting? It's very easy for us as debaters to not like what we hear, or when our opponents are saying something kind of silly, or they make some sort of accusation that just isn't a fair representation of your argument. I've seen multiple debaters do something like this. That's not professional. Judges don't like to see that. Nodding to a particular point or doing this is not helpful. It doesn't actually help you in the way that you think it does. Now, nodding can be good if your opponent says something, my opponent and I agree. You could be like, yeah, we agree. Or, my opponent made this point, I can agree. Or you can even agree to your opponent's point. Yeah, theoretical knowledge is valuable. And you're affirmative, you go, yeah. It's totally okay to nod and be supportive of your opponent's points. That does communicate, like when you do this or redo that, it does communicate to the judge, but no one likes to see people who are just doing that all the time, especially shaking your head. Shaking your head is not professional. Don't do it. If you're having problems with reactions, don't react at all. Sit there, be gracious. If your opponent says something interesting, circle it, highlight it, don't let any expression. Why? Because the person who expresses is actually subliminally less confident and less able. I see it as a sign of weakness for someone to think that in order for the judge to believe my argument, I have to be expressive and shake my head or nod my head. That means that the weight of my argumentation wasn't impactful enough, so now I'm relying on nonverbal expressions to carry through my arguments. That's not good. Your argument should be so strong that even if your opponent brings up a really good point, complete silence. Just write down. Because what that communicates to the judge is you're not fazed, you're not bothered by anything they could say. And oftentimes this actually strikes a little bit of fear in your opponent. So make sure that you are confident in what you're asking in cross-examination, confident in how you're answering in cross-examination, and at the table, you are equally as confident. You're not looking smug, you're not being like, oh yeah, I'm totally gonna win. High status. Just you're neutral in your expressions, and you're not looking at your opponent, you're not trying to prove the judge wrong, you are just doing your thing. That'll carry you a lot farther than you might think it would. A key thing to do in cross-examination, now that I think about it, is to ask a clarification. And what I mean by this, if your opponent says something, so like let's say you ask the question, is it good to do XYZ thing? Yes. Why? Why is it good? If your opponent gives you an admission, ask them why. That'll often lead to stronger arguments. If they say they don't know, that's okay. You can tell them why in your speech. But your goal is to tell the judge or ask them why. Let them speak for your point. That'll be really helpful because quoting your opponent for your own affirmative or negative arguments is key to gaining some credibility. And when you are being asked questions, it's okay to say, yeah, no, sure. My little brother loves to say, sure. I'm not sure. I don't think so. A lot of times your opponents will stop because they thought they've gotten an admission when in reality, they asked a really broad question. So you said yes. And by saying, a lot of debaters will do this. They'll say, yes, but practical skills do this. Or yes, but it's theoretical. Your opponent does not care. The judge does not care. The judge is wondering if you're gonna actually answer the question. If you're confident and unfazed and you're saying, is all theoretical knowledge moral? No. That you might think, oh, that's shocking. I have to try to justify theoretical knowledge. No, you don't. Just say no. If the answer is no or yes, say yes or no. Because your opponent will either, one, ask you to clarify, and with that clarification, you can say the point that you were trying to make. Yeah, so theoretical knowledge is obviously not all morals, but it is the only way to get to morality. So because of that, it's still significant, right? That sounds a lot better than, well, no, but theoretical knowledge is still morality. The former is way more impactful to any, and way more persuasive to any judge. So make sure that you remain confident in your answers and confident in your abilities. That will take you a lot farther. So smile, Be confident in your answers, not smug, but be confident. You're not fazed by anything. And remember to bring through your framework and your argumentation all the way through the round. These things are going to carry you further into out rounds and separate you from your opponents, because you're going to start debating some really intellectual people. They're going to come up with these new forms of logic, these new ways of thinking, which is all great and might be a little daunting. Just remember, don't sacrifice your own conflict. Don't sacrifice your own framework. It doesn't matter what your opponent says. Your framework proves your side of the resolution true. So if you abandon your framework, you have a harder time winning the round. So don't abandon your framework. Abandon their framework and get them to focus on yours, because subliminally, the more time spent on a particular side, it is more often that the judge votes for that side simply because it was the main topic of discussion. So if the affirmative focuses their entire time talking about how theoretical knowledge is bad and the neg talks about how theoretical knowledge is good, theoretical knowledge is going to be swimming in the judge's mind. It's going to be a lot easier for them to vote for theoretical knowledge despite the affirmative saying it's bad, if that makes sense. So make sure whatever your opponent says, don't give up your own case. Go back to your own impacts. Just get rid of their 10-second refutation, right? No impact, non-unique, no link, outweighed, right? Those responses are really key because they basically say, yeah, well, my opponent's saying it has no weight in today's debate round, I still win. A confidence like that will take you further than anything you could do. Don't get caught in the weeds. I could speak on these topics forever, because they're so true. And this is what I experienced as an LD debater who qualified and broke in NITOC every year that he debated in. So just make sure that you do these things because they will keep you farther. What separates a good debater from a great debater is the subliminal messaging, the nonverbal communication, and the confidence that one has. Anyone can get into the weeds. Anyone can speak words, but directing those words is what's going to take you farther. So anyways, I hope that this video was helpful for you. I want to see you succeed. Of course, want to see my little brother succeed. I want to see the people who are coming back next year to succeed as well. So make sure that if you're watching these videos, consider what I said here, because you are trying to be persuasive. And the key to persuasion is you, yourself, your personality. And I want your personality to shine through in your debate rounds. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in tomorrow's Daily Debrief. Have a good night.